Hi, my name is Siope, and I'm the director of Smarter Parenting. Today I wanted to talk to you about helping children learn to control their emotions, largely using a very specific technique. Now, I was working with a family with an 11-year-old boy, and he had a hard time controlling his temper. He was fairly explosive. His parents would ask him to do something, and he would react. He would punch holes into walls. He would throw things, yell, run out of the house. And after working with this family for a while, we focused a lot of attention on the parents and how they can interact with their son in a more positive way. But with the young man, he also needed help. And so I introduced this idea, this concept to him to help him monitor his own responses, his own physiological responses when things happen. Now, it's a fairly simple technique, and it's something that anyone can do. I purchased something called a pulse oximeter. Now, you can buy one of these at your local drugstore for around $20 to $30. You don't have to get something that's super expensive. But a pulse oximeter is something that you would find at a hospital. So you stick it on your finger, and it will tell you what your heartbeat is and also oxygen levels. And by doing this, we were able to monitor how he was responding to different stimuli within the home. So initially, in talking to the boy, we made it a game. And I put it on him, and we tried to determine, first off, his baseline. What is his resting heart rate? And we did this by having him sit down in a calm state, putting it on his finger, and we were able to watch the number fluctuate, either one up or one down. And he was able to get a baseline, so we took note of that. And then I gave him a challenge to actually try and reduce that number, so reduce his heart rate, and offered suggestions on how he could do that. So he could start to deep breathe, take deep breaths, and calm down, relax his muscles. And he was able to bring it down actually 5 more points than where it was when he was resting. And we logged that down. Okay, and so we were able to recognize from there 2 points where he's calm and he's able to deal with things. What we did then after that is I met with the parents and with him, and he kept the pulse oximeter on him. And as we started to discuss some of the issues in the home, and what we were watching for is to see if it started to elevate his heart rate. And as it started to escalate, while we started to talk about issues in the home, we took a break and had him bring it back down. Now, this is a powerful technique, especially for children, because they're able to recognize they have control. They have some element of control, and they're able to work through things. So while we were working through this whole process with this family, it was pretty powerful for them to see and to recognize that, yeah, we don't need to lay out our whole agenda to the child at this time. We can actually work with him. So we'll talk about a difficult topic, and then we'll evaluate how well he's doing, and then bring his heart rate back down, and then talk again about a difficult topic, see it elevate, and then bring it back down. And it's almost this dance between the parent and the child. And that's completely appropriate. Now, for parents who think that they just should be able to lay down the law and the kids need to suck it up, that's a great thing if you don't want a relationship with your child. But if you want a relationship with your child that's long-term, that's resilient, that will last for a long time, you want to be able to recognize that as your child grows, you're going to negotiate that relationship. It changes. It's not going to be, I say, or the highway. It's going to be, okay, I'm in control while you're young. As you get a little bit older, you're going to have a little more independence. I recognize that. I'm still the parent. I'm going to lay the rules. You need to abide by those within your independence and then continue to grow. So with this child, it's been interesting to watch him over the progress, because I worked with him when he was 11 years old, and at 15 he was still using this technique. Okay, we first implemented this technique inside the home, just with the parents, and then we actually implemented it over to the school, where I met with the school, talked with the teacher, and said he's going to be carrying a pulse oximeter, which was, he just wore it around his neck. It was on a lanyard, and every hour in school he would just check, and he could do this on his own silently, and he would write down what the number was. And that way we could monitor there as well and see where he would escalate. He was able to monitor and bring down his heart rate, but he continued to use it, largely because for him, it was a good way for him to feel like in control of what was happening around him, and also to recognize what things were setting him off and making him anxious or angry or upset. Once you're able to do that, and he's able to recognize he can bring things to a different level, that opens up the floodgates to a whole bunch of other options that he can implement in order to control his temper and his reaction to things. So it's super, super important for parents to look for techniques that work. This is one that I've used actually often with families to help them with children. And it's a game for some of these kids and for families. One recommendation I do have, though, is that the parents also use a pulse oximeter. They can do that too. So you can use it during a family meeting. You can monitor where you become upset and then try and de-escalate from there. Everybody takes a time out to kind of calm down. Then you come back and address the issues. Now, pulse oximeter, of course, you can buy one in your drugstore. You can also download apps. They're available. They're not as effective. Also, if you wear a Fitbit or if you wear an Apple Watch or any of those watches also do the same thing. They measure your heart rate. You can use any of those. However, I prefer to use one that is from the drugstore, around $20, largely because I don't want to give a child an expensive electronic thing. Because who knows, when they're explosive, who knows what they'll do with it. So it's better to start off with something that, you can replace and it's a little bit easier to use. So that's a suggestion that you can use as a parent with your child to help your child who may be having a problem de-escalating or learning to control their temper or their anxiety.